Today we're talking about ExpressLrs and what I think is possibly the very best ExpressLrs transmitter module that you can buy on the market today, and that is this, the new Ranger module from Radiomaster. In this video, we're going to take a closer look. I'm going to walk you through its features and capabilities. We're going to tear it down, and then at the end, I'm going to share with you my thoughts. Now, just to be clear up front, Radiomaster have sent me this module for free. However, they have not seen this video before it's been published. I have not been paid for this video, and my thoughts are, as always, entirely my own. Anyway, let's get on with it, and let's take a closer look at what this is all about. Okay, so what we have here is the all-new Ranger ExpressLrs transmitter from Radiomaster. Now, the one you're seeing here is the main transmitter in the range. There is another two models, which we're going to cover in a separate video. We have the Ranger Micro and the Ranger Nano as well. But today we're going to be concentrating on the big one. Now, the Ranger is probably the most fully featured ExpressLrs transmitter I have seen to date. There are new features on this that I have not seen before, and there's some really cool and exciting capabilities on this, which we'll take a look at as we move through. Now, when you get it, you lift the lid on the box, and as always with Radiomaster, the gear generally comes in nice packaging. You will find the main transmitter module itself. As you can see, it is a large unit. The main Ranger module itself is made of full CNC aluminium. Because it is fully metal, it weighs 155 grams with an antenna fitted, and its dimensions are 90 by 51 by 24. Now, this large version is designed to work with various different transmitters. If we have a look on the back, you can see that we have this area here with a plug, and they include adapters in the box for fitting it onto your transmitter. There's a standard JR Bay adapter, there is a micro adapter, and there's an adapter for using it with the likes of Futaba CRSF as well, which goes into the plug on the bottom. You'll see, looking around the transmitter, we have an OLED display on the front. We have our 5-way joystick. We have two buttons here, which we'll take a look at in a minute. We have fan. We have our antenna connection on the top, and there's something very good about this antenna connection, and that is that it is RPSMA. It is correct for the device being a transmitter. Normally on radio modules, you found that they've been using SMA connectors, but actually a transmission module should be using an RPSMA, and that's what we've got on there. If we lift then up to the bottom, you can see we have a USB-C port for upgrading the firmware. We have an XT30 port for powering this device externally, and it will take DC power at 6 to 16 volts. And then we have that Futaba input cable option. Now, as I've said, the whole housing on this unit is made of solid aluminium. You can see in the middle there, we've got a fan. And then up here, you've got these little LED strips, which we'll take a look at a little bit more closer in a minute. The real thing to take away from this module is that it is absolutely solid, and it is a very high-end module capable of up to 1 watt of power output on ExpressLrs. If we just pop it down a minute, and we'll come back to it in a moment, we'll go through the rest of the box and have a look at what they include. They give you not one antenna, but two antennas in the box as well. We have our standard T-style, and then we actually have a Moxon antenna as well. Again, fully solid plastic covered, nice and strong, which is going to give you great performance from the system. Then below this, if we lift that out, we find the rest of the accessories that are included with the transmitter. We have our JR Bay module, we have our smaller module, and then we have our wiring for connecting to that Futaba system if we want to use it as well. Now, these module bays do attach to the back of the transmitter. So if I just take out the standard JR Bay one, because that's the one we're going to need, you can see that there's a plug section on the back of here, and that plugs into there. And then what you do is use the included screws. So once you've decided what fitment you want to go with, you mount that onto the back nice and gently, and then you take the included screws, which are in that bag down there at the bottom, and then use them to fix that to the back of the module. Now, obviously, this is going to sit off the back of the radio. That is because it is a high-end module. It's got all of the extra features and capabilities that we'll go through in a minute, but it is going to take up a bit of additional space on the back. If you did want a module that does go into the radio, into the JR bay, they do have the other two ones, as I've said, but these don't have all of the features that this one has that we'll walk through in a minute. Now, fitting the module into our radio is nice and straightforward. I've got a TX16S here, and what we're going to do is simply flip it over, plug it into the bay on the back. You can see that it locks in place, and then you can see that the module sits off the back there like that. Okay, now powering the module up, we're just going to do that just to get it to kick in. And you'll see the module power up. And the first thing you'll notice is one of the features of these LED strips down the side here and these two LEDs over here. The real thing to note, though, is these aren't just LEDs. These are buttons, and they're not only buttons, they are RGB programmable buttons. And not only can you change the color of them, but you can actually change the functions of these buttons in the Wi-Fi configurator for this ExpressLrs module. Now, just walking you through the main spec on this, because I haven't actually done it yet. We have here an ExpressLrs module that is based on the ESP32 for the normal main CPU and the ESP8285 for the backpack functionality. It supports the normal frequency range of 2400 to 2480, and it has a maximum packet rate of up to the F1000 Hz standard, and it can go down to 25 Hz as well. This module supports a maximum power of 30 dBm or 1 watt of RF power output from the unit, but it can be reduced as well, and you can control that not only from the OLED display on the back, but you can control it via the ExpressLrs Lua script as well. As you can see, it's got that OLED display, which is 64 by 128 pixels. It has built-in Wi-Fi, built-in Bluetooth, as well as a built-in 3-axis accelerometer, which is the STK8BA58. That is going to give it a whole host of new functionality, including the ability for the radio to automatically go into low power mode when you place it down. That is a really cool feature that we haven't seen before, and I'll demonstrate that a little bit more later on in the video. It obviously has these built-in RGB strips as well, and whilst they don't bring any functionality, they are a nice touch to the radio too. Now, controlling this radio is really straightforward. If we just turn off the arm switch, we have our 5-way D button here in the middle, which allows us to go into the main menu. What I'll do is just change the overhead so you can see the screen a little bit easier. Okay, so as you can see, we have our main ExpressLrs display shown here. We have all of the usual information. So you have the name of the system, you have your firmware version, currently showing experimental because this is pre-release software. We have the packet rate, the telemetry ratio, as well as the RF power level. If we go in to the main menu, so if we press and hold the button, we have all of the usual options, but there are some real interesting extras in here too. So we have the option to set the packet rate, again, up to that maximum of F1000, but we could go down to 50 Hz, 100 full, 150, 250, 333, 500, D250, D500, F500, or up to that F1000 mode like we've seen with the latest versions of ExpressLrs. We can then go through and set the TX power, so we can set what the maximum power output is. So we can set that up to 1 watt, or we can have it at 25, 50, 100, 250, 500, or up to that maximum. We're going to set this one to 25 whilst I've got it on the bench. We've got the option if we want dynamic power on and off. So rather than it be on that full power output you choose all of the time, it will then set the power output based on the signal level. We then can scroll through to the options for the telemetry ratio. We have a new option called Motion Detect, and that uses that new built-in accelerometer that is in the module, and that allows it to have that really cool new feature that when your radio is disarmed and you put it down, it will set it to the lowest power level. So what that means is, if you're flying around other users and you've got it set to say a watt, but you put your radio down when you've landed, as long as the radio is disarmed and the radio doesn't sense any movement, it will actually shut the power down to the minimum level, which is 25 milliwatts on that. And we'll actually try and demonstrate that in this video as well. But that's what that motion detect option does. We have the option for using this as a Bluetooth gamepad. So rather than using a USB cable with your system, depending on what you're flying with, if you're using a SIM, you can simply do that directly via the module with the built-in Bluetooth and Wi-Fi functionality. We have the bind mode options, Wi-Fi admin options, VTX admin options if you're using the backpack functionality, and then it goes back to the packet rate. Another cool feature of the module, because of that built-in accelerometer, is it will also turn off the display when the radio's upside down. Now, I'm not going to be able to show you this very easily, but if I just turn the radio over, it's now turned the display off, and it's turned it back on, turned it off, turned it back on. So to save battery power when you're flying, rather than that display be on all the time, it simply turns it off when you don't need it. Now, as I've said earlier, there are two additional buttons here on the front of this module. We have the pink one and the blue one. These can be programmed to do additional functions on the module via the ExpressLrs Wi-Fi configurator. Now, to do this, you're going to need to connect this module to your computer via Wi-Fi. So what I'm going to do is press the button. We're going to go and find the Wi-Fi options. So we're going to go down to Wi-Fi admin. We're going to choose TX Wi-Fi. We do have the option for RX Wi-Fi and the backpack Wi-Fi and the VRX Wi-Fi, but we're going to choose TX Wi-Fi. Press to enter, and you can now see it says ExpressLrs. It gives us what the SSID is and then the IP address. So what I'm going to do now is hop over to the desktop and we'll take a look at what options are available via the Wi-Fi configurator. Okay, so we have the module in Wi-Fi mode, and I'm just going to connect to the ExpressLrs Wi-Fi network, and then it will open up a page for me automatically. However, for some reason, my PC never goes to the right page. So what we're going to do is go to 10.0.0.1, click enter, and that then takes us to this ExpressLrs homepage for this new Ranger module. Now, under here, we can do various things. We can do the runtime option, so we can put in our binding phrase if we want to, or you can program that via the configurator once it's released. We've then got the Wi-Fi settings options, how long you want it to go in, and we could also set up the home Wi-Fi options here as well if we wanted to, if we wanted it to connect to our local network. We then over here have this new option, which is for buttons, and this allows us to configure those two buttons that are on the front of the radio. We can change the color of them from this option down here. So if you remember on the front, we actually had the buttons pink and blue. We can change the color on them via this option down here if we want to. But we then have up here the actions for the buttons and those configurations. So you can see we've got button actions, button 1 long, button 1 short, button 2 long, button 2 short, etc. And you can then tell it what you want it to do. So for instance, at the moment, it's come pre-configured that for button 1, on a short press 3 times, it will enter binding mode. On button 1, a long press for more than 0.5 seconds will increase the power output. Button 2, short press 2 times, will go to the VTX channel menu, and button 2, long press and hold, will send VTX settings. You can also change the options that are available here. And whilst at this moment in time, there isn't an option for everything, I'm sure we'll see this expand over time. So for instance, if we wanted to, we could say button 2, start Wi-Fi on long press for more than 1 second. And that way, I'd be able to enter the Wi-Fi on it without having to go into the menu. It would simply be a quick press to go in. We can then actually say, you know what we want it to do is use that power change, which we've got there. We've got binding mode on the short press 3 times, or increase power on the long press. And again, I'm going to do that for more than 1 second. You can set the time on that from 0.5 to up to 4 seconds max. I'm going to leave that as 1 second. Once we're happy with that, we can click save, and that will then save those settings to the module. Like all ExpressLrs units, you can also update the firmware on this as well manually if you wanted to do it, and you can do that via the page here. What we'll also do is change the color of our buttons whilst we're in here. So what we're going to do is change the first one to green, and I think what we'll then do is change the second one to yellow. Again, click save, and if I now go back to the overhead, and you can now see that the colors have changed. We can now also do those actions on those buttons. So for instance, on button 1, if I press it for more than a second and wait, you can see it's now increased the power to 50 milliwatts. Press and hold again. To 100 milliwatts. Press and hold again. Up to 250. So you can use that to step through the different power options available. And then if I wanted to re-enable the Wi-Fi quickly, I set that on button 2. So if I press and hold button 2, boom, the TX has gone straight into Wi-Fi. So it's really good to have these new quick configurable options that you can put on buttons. So rather than have to go into the menu or the ExpressLrs Lua script, you can set one for power, one for Wi-Fi mode if you use them all the time, or for your VTX settings if you're using backpack, etc. And it just makes life super simple. Next, I want to show you that really cool feature of having that built-in accelerometer and the ability of the radio to turn the power down automatically. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the way this works is if you're not armed and it detects no movement for about a second, it will turn the power level down. So what we're going to do is press and hold to set our power level on the back, and we're going to set it to a higher number. So we're going to set it to 500 milliwatts on this at the moment. We're going to go in, we're going to make sure that it is set. So TX power, max power, we'll set it here actually, and we'll set it to 500 milliwatts on this. And we'll also then make sure that we've got the motion detect option turned on. So we're going to turn that on, press to confirm, and now we've got 500 milliwatts with the motion detect feature enabled. What I'm going to do now is remove the antenna, swap it over to my RF power meter, and then I'll show you that feature actually in use. Okay, so we've got the module on 500 milliwatts, and I've got my RF power meter connected at the top here. It's quite hard to see with my damaged display, but you can see that is currently outputting about 470 to 480 milliwatts on 500 milliwatt mode. Absolutely fine. Now, the way this feature works is if the radio detects no movement after a period of time, in my tests, 10 to 25 seconds, and it is not armed, it will lower the power level. However, it will only do that when you are not armed. If you are armed, it will not turn the power level down. And this is one of the reasons, alongside many others, it's important that you have your ExpressLrs arm switch set to the high PWM, not low, because if you do have it set the wrong way round, the radio's not going to know. So just to demonstrate this, I'm going to put that box there. I'm going to arm the radio and pretend that we're using it. And I'm now going to disarm and place the radio down there. I'm going to turn my power meter back on because it went into standby. And I'm just going to leave it a second. Now you can currently see it's showing 470, 480 milliwatts. If we wait, because I'm not touching the radio and it thinks it's been left alone, what it will do after a period of time is turn it down to the lower power level. Again, as I've said, my tests, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, something like that. And then it will drop it down to the minimum for your module. So on this one, it's going to be about 20 to 25 milliwatts. There we go. It's just changed. And you can now see that it's gone down. If I now pick the radio back up, you can see it's detected movement and it's then put the power back up to maximum. If I again place it down there, leave it, because we're not armed, the radio will wait, listen, and then shut it down to a lower power level. Now, the reason this is really handy is if you're someone that's flying around other users, but you're not flying at minimum power level, if you've stopped flying, you've disarmed, and you just walk back and put your radio on the side, it's going to drop that power level for you to a lower point to A, help save battery life on the radio, but B, stop you causing interference around other users as well. It's a nice feature that basically takes away the need for you to manage your power level whilst around other people. And if you use the dynamic power option as well, that will help prevent you using too much power when you don't need it. So you can set the maximum power level in ExpressLrs and then have the lower power level set for what you want it to go down to with this mode when it's not detecting movement. At the moment there, it's not switched. If I just pretend we were flying, because it does need to think we were flying at times, switch it off, put it back down again and wait. And then when we're disarmed and it doesn't think that there's any movement, it will then switch it to the lower level again. So there we go. You can see she's just jumped down. I think this is a fantastic feature, and it's a really good one to see in this new Ranger module from Radiomaster. One last thing I just want to quickly show you on this whilst I've got the power meter connected is the maximum power output this module will give. At the moment, we're running it off the radio batteries. You can see we've set it to 1000 milliwatts, which is 1 watt. And if I flip it over, you can see on the power meter there, it is clearly showing 30.5 or 30.6, 30.3 dBm or 1.12 watts. So we're definitely getting the rated power output on this one. Further to that test, I have checked all of the power levels on the module, and you can see it is pretty much spot on. In my tests, even leaving the module for over 20 minutes on the bench, it consistently achieved its maximum power output of over 1 watt. So I've got no concerns with this module's capability of achieving the rated power, and it's hardly surprising considering the amount of cooling they have added as part of the main design of the unit. Just another note, in my tests, I have checked power consumption on the module as well, and whilst checking it via the XT30 input on the bottom, I'm reading at about 160 milliamps of draw at 12 volts. Okay, now the last thing we're going to do is take a quick look inside. We'll do a bit of a teardown. Now, I've already removed the back cover, and if I flip it over, you can see the inside of the back side of the module. We have up here our antenna coming in, which looks to be a right-angled connector straight to the PCB, which means there's no pigtail. Always good to see, should offer a little bit of extra performance. We've then got a can here, which will be our chipset for our main RF, most likely. We've then got our connector input with another connector here with some wiring going off to the front of the board, which probably is the fan and RGB. We've got our ESP32 over this side, our ESP8285 over here, and then we've got some voltage regulation down the bottom here. We've got a linear voltage regulator, another IC over there, most likely USB communications IC, as well as our little flash chip there. Now, to get into the rest of the module, we need to remove these 4 screws. That one, that one, that one, that one. So we'll do that, and then we'll take a look at what's on the other side of the board. Okay, so I've got it out of its casing, and now you can see that there's another PCB on the top. This is housing our OLED display, as well as the buttons, the 5D joystick, as well as the LEDs. Now, what's super interesting about the design Radiomaster have done here is that they've sandwiched the fan in between. So what it's doing is it's sucking in air from the front, pushing that through this heat sink, and pushing that out the top, and then that is coming out the top of the module casing. Overall, the build quality on this module looks absolutely fantastic. You can see we've got the info there, the Radiomaster Ranger 2.4 Elrs module OLED Vision 1.6. You can see the logo down there. We've got a PCB jumper section here, which jumps from the top to the bottom. And then you've got that backside as we showed earlier. Overall, not only does this module have a high quality outside casing, the internal design looks extremely well done as well. And I don't see anything here for 1 minute that would raise any concerns. And actually, as is expected from Radiomaster, it is an extremely high quality module. Now, one last quick test is how the module handles itself thermally. Here, I'm using the Infrared P2 Pro thermal camera to have a look at how the module is dealing with the heat that it is creating. You can see the external shell is completely cold. At this point, it had been left for half an hour on full power, and you can see the only real hot spot that's visible on the module itself is on the fan in the middle where the motor is. The module itself isn't creating any heat externally. It is simply sucking the air in through the front and then pushing that up out of the top, and you can see a slight warming around the RP SMA connector where that heat is being vented. Now, alongside the main Ranger module, as I mentioned earlier, Radiomaster have released two others. We have the Ranger Micro and the Ranger Nano. All three of these modules are capable of outputting up to 1 watt max or 30 dBm. They all have Wi-Fi, and the big difference with these modules is they don't have all the additional bells and whistles that this larger main module has, such as the OLED display and all of that additional functionality. However, if you are looking for a high power module for your ExpressLrs system, Radiomaster do have you covered with the Micro, which is our standard JR base style, which will fit in and offer a nice almost flat solution on the back. It's not going to be totally flat, but it is going to be smaller than the main Ranger. And then we've got the Nano module, again, type of module that will go on the back of the Zorro, etc. So if you're looking for one of these modules with a high power output with the XT30 wide range DC power input, Radiomaster do have one in their range which should pretty much suit everyone. So that is the new Ranger Power module from Radiomaster. Price-wise, the CNC version is set to come in at $99. And for that, you're getting a 1 watt, high power, high quality ExpressLrs module with customizable buttons, OLED display, and all of that additional functionality as well. I actually think this is probably the most feature-packed ExpressLrs module you can buy on the market today, and Radiomaster really have been smashing it out of the park recently with regards to not only their radios but all of their ExpressLrs capable gear. They are a supporter of the ExpressLrs project, and as a result of that, all of the gear actually gets tested by the dev team. It is fully compatible in the configurator, and you're going to have all of the proper updates for this, no problem at all. If you don't want to get this module, you can look at one of the other versions. As I've said, we've got the Nano and the Micro, which are going to be cheaper as well, and I'm going to cover them separately in another video. For me, I think it's absolutely fantastic, and I'm going to be using this as my main module now moving forward. If you're interested in getting one, please do consider checking out the link to it in the description. Just to be clear, it is an affiliate link. Radiomaster is about the only brand in FPV that I use affiliate links for, and that is because I think they're one of the most trusted vendors I have come across in FPV today. Their products are extremely high quality, but not only that, Radiomaster are supporting the projects that they're working with, such as the ExpressLrs project, and they are doing things properly. And if you're interested in getting one, you can use that link, and I will receive a small commission as a result of doing so. Just further to that, I want to say, please do also consider supporting the ExpressLrs project itself via their Open Collective page. In the last 2 years, the ExpressLrs team have done amazing work driving the industry forward. It is literally the best RC link on the market today with regards to features, capability, and choice of equipment. And if you'd like to support that open source project, you can do a one-off donation or a recurring donation via their Open Collective page, and I will put a link to that in the description as well. Now, I'm really interested in hearing what you think about this module, and if you have any questions on it, please do put them in the comment section and I will try and answer it. If you have found this video interesting, please do make sure you are subscribed. As I've said, I'm going to release the video on the other modules in the near future. Finally, I just want to say, if you'd like to support the channel to allow us to keep making content, please do consider checking out the link to my Patreon. I want to say a massive thank you to all of my patrons for supporting the channel. We would not have been able to make some of the content that we've made this year without your support, and if you think we've earned your support today, please do consider checking that out as well. Anyway, that's it from me. Please do let me know what you think in the comment section. Stay safe, and I will speak to you soon.